Hi everyone, and welcome to Behind the Numbers. My name is Dave Bookbinder. I'm a Senior Director of Evaluation Services at CFGI. And in my world, business performance and business value is measured by the numbers. This is the show where we dig a little bit deeper and go behind the numbers to understand what really matters most in business. A hot topic that I'm sure you've all read about recently is employee engagement. Why it matters, how do you measure it, and how do you get the most out of your people? And today, I've got a guest who's going to help us understand all those things. I'm pleased to welcome Doug Claffey, who's the CEO of Energage. Doug, welcome to Behind the Numbers.
Thanks very much.
Pleasure to have you. We normally start the program where my guest tells the audience a little bit of who they are about their firm, and then let's get after it.
Sounds great. So I'm Doug Claffey. I'm the founder of Energage. Energage is an employee engagement and culture company, and we help build and brand great cultures. Just a little bit about me prior to Energage. I was a rocket scientist in the aerospace industry for a number of years, and then was a consultant at McKinsey & Company. But my real passion was about how people work together and applying science and the discipline of engineering to that challenge of how to help people work together better. And so that was the sort of genesis of the founding of Energage.
I've never had a rocket scientist on the program before, so you're the first.
Well, reformed rocket scientist, not a current practice.
Okay. So let's dive into this topic of employee engagement. Why does it matter so much? Why is it the hot topic on everybody's tongue today?
It's the hot topic because a lot of the other sources of strategic advantage have already become essentially democratized across businesses. And so we went through a phase where it was all about putting in the discipline of quality, TQM, putting in ERP, CRM. And so those, we had competitive advantages around geography or around access to information. And the internet and technology have essentially eliminated those as sources of strategic advantage. And so it's getting to the point where the only remaining source of strategic advantage is your people. And so if we have engaged cultures, if we have cultures where people want to come to work and give their best, those are the businesses that are going to win in today's economy.
Well, you're preaching to the choir when it comes to that, and I think you know that. But how does a firm measure engagement?
So really the best way to measure engagement is by asking the employees themselves and then applying benchmarking to that through an employee survey. And that can be done as an annual survey, that can be done on a more continuous basis with Pulse. But ultimately you want to ask employees how they're feeling, and then you have to do it with a benchmark or you're not going to know where you stand.
So within the surveys, I mean, people will tell you they've been surveyed to death. I know I have throughout my career. And a couple of things that come to mind when you think about surveys, traditionally speaking, is one, are they anonymous? Can I really be truthful in this? And number two, what's the employer really going to do with this information? So is there a regular cadence that you'd recommend, and how do people actually take these surveys seriously?
So great points, one around anonymity and one around cadence. The other one I would bring up is around the length of the survey. And so what you really don't want is a survey that's too long, and attention spans are shorter now than ever, and nobody wants to take a survey that's 150 questions. So we found the sweet spot to be just around 20 questions or so, sort of less than 5 minutes. And then an annual survey followed up by a cadence of either monthly or quarterly kind of pulse check-ins is the way to do it. And then anonymity is critically important, and so you really want to use a third party who's going to keep that employee confidentiality, but provide enough insight in terms of where the feedback came from, what department, what demographic, so that it's actionable.
And you've got a patent, if I'm not mistaken, around the survey that you use.
Yeah, we do. It's we've taken a discipline called high stakes math and applied it to the problem and the challenge of how to interpret survey results. And this is the same type of algorithms that are used for things like cancer detection. We've taken that to remove all the inherent sort of biases and demographic biases that are in survey responses to give you better, more accurate insights into how your people feel about your department, your company, than versus the benchmark.
And what's the scale, if you will? Is it like a 1 to 10 level of engagement? How do you actually measure it, so to speak?
So we measure engagement on a 0 to 100% scale. So 100% engaged would mean that individuals answered 3 statements at least slightly positively, which are, I feel motivated to do my best. I have not looked for a job in the last 60 days, and I would refer this place to a friend to work. And so if you can answer all three of those positively, then you'd be considered engaged. And then we also measure highly engaged and actively disengaged. But it's really that sort of 100% scale is how we measure engagement.
Okay, so let's poke on the button of anonymity a little bit, because I
Sure.
would imagine a lot of people would wonder, I don't want to disclose that I'm looking for a job currently. How do you get around that?
So the answer is on a 1 to 7 point scale, because they're using an external vendor who really lives and dies by anonymity. They know that we're not going to provide their name or their number associated with that. We do ask follow-up comments, and we're very careful to let people know that we're going to provide those comments back to their leadership so that it's actionable. So if you were to answer, hi, I'm Dave, and I looked for a job last month, in the comments, then you would be revealing your anonymity. As long as you don't do that, then you're going to be safe from an anonymity perspective.
Yeah, and I get, my instinct also is too, if an employee is working in an environment where they're fed up and they really are looking for a job, they feel probably they have nothing to lose anyway.
Yeah, I think that there's something to be said for that. But we do find that we'll get response rates, from 80 to 90%, and then people are typically pretty honest about how they feel about the company, because they want to get the feedback in and ideally make their workplace better.
Let's talk a little bit about Energage and your business for a quick moment here. Who are the kind of clients that you're typically working with?
Really, they range anywhere from 50 employees up to 50,000. So we range from the SMB up through the mid-market into enterprise across all sectors. So we work with government agencies to nonprofits to tech to manufacturing to banking. The sectors that we support more so than others tend to be around healthcare, finance, and technology.
Is that generally because that's where the problems are?
Well, it's where the problems there. Those are really people-intensive
Yeah.
processes, and so if I'm at a hospital, then the relationship between employee engagement and the patient experience is well understood, for example. So,
how do people at your client companies become self-aware, let's call it, to recognize that, hey, we need to do something like this? What's that process like?
there's probably 2 or 3 different paths to becoming self-aware that we need to do something about this. One is when employee retention starts to take a nosedive, and so in a very tight job economy, when companies are starting to lose their valued employees because they're going to find another job, that's one sort of a wake-up call. Another one is companies for whom taking care of employees is part of the DNA of the company and part of the founding. And then a third one will often be when a new leader will come into a senior leadership team and kind of bring that topic as an important priority, and then that will then become one of the sort of top 3 priorities for the business. Usually it's led by a champion of some sort on the senior team. It's kind of that third path.
Yeah. So the survey is just one component of your technology platform, if you will. Talk a little bit about that culture tech platform that your website speaks to, if you would.
Sure. So survey is really provides the analysis of kind of where you stand now. But in terms of improving culture and improving engagement, some of the key elements that lend themselves to use of technology are around appreciation. So our Connect product, part of the Culture Tech platform, allows people to express appreciation for each other through technology, and then to share that on a culture wall that actually displays gratitude that I might express to you, for example, to say, thanks, Dave, for doing a great job of this interview. Then our Coach product allows you to create structured coaching discussions between employees and their managers. It's another area that we know from our research is really important to employees for engagement. And then the last piece is our feedback tool, which provides an anonymous path to senior leadership that's kind of year-round when problems arise. We know from our research that senior managers understanding what's really going on in the business is an important thing to employees, so provide that safe path.
So for our viewers who would like to learn more about you and your business, how can they contact you, Doug?
Best way is to go to www.energage.com and reach out to us through there.
So I don't want you to reveal the secret sauce, and we only have a couple of minutes left in this first segment, but everyone out there probably is wondering, so now that I've measured engagement, how do I do something about it to change it?
So the engagement really is driven by 15 different drivers that we measure with the survey. And so every business is going to be a bit different in terms of where you're doing really well, so you want to celebrate those and reinforce them, and then where there are opportunities, your biggest opportunities to improve. And so the survey acts as a diagnostic to identify the areas to improve. And what we recommend is at the company level, you pick one or two areas to focus on, and then each department can pick one or two areas to focus on throughout the organization. And then you can monitor your progress on that through this pulsing or connect capability. And really don't want to try to change too many things at once, because these are all interconnected. So pick a handful of things, be really clear about that these are priorities, and then go after them in the context of your business and day-to-day business. So.
Yeah, and just to put your survey in context, you've done quite a few of them, if I'm not mistaken. What's the number?
So at this point, we've surveyed about 14 million employees across the United States, right around 50,000 organizations. In a given year, we'll survey about 1 out of every 60 or so employees in the US, so it's pretty comprehensive.
Is there a single hot button issue that you found across all those surveys that really drives engagement or lack thereof?
There's not a single driver. I've mentioned these kind of 15.
Yeah.
15 is kind of too hard to remember, so we've grouped them into 4 imperatives. Those are aligning, so aligning on where you're going and how you're getting there. A deep sense of alignment. The second one is connection, so employees at a gut level feel connected to the company, its mission, its purpose, and to leadership and to their team. And then the third one is around coaching, so developing a coaching relationship between managers and employees. And the fourth one is around execution, and so that's around getting stuff done well. And so those are the 4 imperatives to a great workplace, to high engagement and a great culture.
And who inside the organization is spearheading that effort? Is it the top of the org chart, or is it more of an HR function? How's that play?
So HR normally acts as the kind of expert and champion, and as the sort of champion to ensure that's being done well. But for it really to work, it needs to be senior leadership, and typically that's going to be the CEO, COO, 1 or 2 members of the senior leadership team.
What's been the leadership team's responses over the years as you've presented results to them? Good news, bad news.
Yeah, so there's probably broadly 3 or 4 different categories. One would be just a sense of affirmation for the hard work they put in for the top workplaces that we find through our top workplaces research. And then a second one is a sense of affirmation around certain elements of the survey results. Oh yeah, we kind of knew there was a problem here, but surprise around others. And then the last one is denial, and saying, that's not, I want to try to, I'll deny that's that reality, because I don't want to address it. And so those are the sort of 4 different reactions.
Okay, and we're going to talk more about the top workplaces, but I think we've got to take a quick commercial break at the moment. So you don't go anywhere, and you don't go anywhere, and we'll be right back on Behind the Numbers after this brief break.
Artisan cheeses, organic produce, and grocery items, all from the finest purveyors. We're Stelly Market Fresh, from our family to yours.
RVN TV is a platform for people of any industry to share their story. Over 285,000 viewers are tuning in to RVN TV shows monthly. We guarantee a great experience that you'll be sharing with everyone you know while increasing your personal and company's brand awareness. But what is your brand? According to Forbes, it's a combination of your logo, your product, your design and feel, and your personality. Did you know that aside from being a guest, we offer even more opportunity to boost your brand? Adding your company logo and website on screen during your interview will allow viewers to recognize your brand instantly. Incorporating images and video clips is another great way to showcase your product during your live segment. Let viewers see how good you really are. And most importantly, there's you and your interview. For less than the cost of a newspaper, direct mail, or a magazine ad, you can leave our studio and within 48 hours have a permanent digital copy of your live segment to link to your social media, embed into your company website, or use in email marketing. Investing in your brand is so very important, and we can't wait to have you as a guest.
Shelter dogs aren't broken. They've simply experienced more life. If they were human, we would call them wise. They would be the ones with tales to tell and stories to write, the ones dealt a bad hand who responded with courage. Do not pity a shelter dog. Adopt one.
Say we've got grit, and we'll take it as a compliment. Because it's our uncommon drive, our spark within, that brings us together and sets us apart. We are temple made. And when others take shortcuts, when others take breaks, when others take the easy way, we take charge.
Add us on social media to watch bloopers, behind-the-scenes footage, previews, and more.
I work 13 hours a day, 6 days a week. So when I'm off the clock, I gotta get stuff done. So when I need a snack, I need something healthy, tasty, and easy to eat. Like wonderful pistachios without the shells. They're protein-powered, delicious, and great on the go. And that's perfect for me. Thanks, Liz. A woman without a lot of time.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Behind the Numbers. I'm Dave Bookbinder. Today we're talking all things employee engagement and corporate culture with Doug Claffey, the Chief Executive Officer of Energage. And Doug, let's just talk a little terminology real quick here. Employee engagement, workplace experience, corporate culture, they're often used synonymously. Are they all really the same thing?
Yeah, they are not the same thing. Employee engagement is a metric or a measurement that gives you a sense of the quality of a culture that's consistent across many different cultures. And so I could have a culture that's really focused on innovation, or a culture that's really focused on execution. And I could have employees and individuals who are more suited toward one or the other. In both cases, engagement is a measure of a consistent measure across cultures that gives me a sense of the quality of that culture. So, and then employee experience is a term that's really come into use recently, and that's really followed the notion of a customer experience. And so that experience starts with when I first am exposed to the company from an outside perspective as a prospect or even as a customer, all the way through an interview process to onboarding, to my annual review process, and then as I exit, is that a kind of a good experience as well? And so those are all related. Those three terms are kind of used in some ways interchangeably, but engagement is that measurement of a measurement of the quality of a culture, and then experience is from the employee-centric perspective, like how do I experience that company from start to end?
So when you talk about the employee experience piece, what I heard in my head was that your people are your brand ambassadors. They represent your firm both externally to your clients and your customers, but also internally to your employees. Can you talk a little bit about that brand culture alignment?
Culture branding, sure. So branding your culture is something that's still only a few companies think about that from an employer branding perspective. Certainly the discipline of branding your company and your product for your customers is a well understood topic, and there's lots and lots of time and effort and money that are spent on those on branding your company for your customers. There's a handful of companies that have really been focused on having a great employer brand for many years, and companies like McKinsey and Company or Enterprise Rent-A-Car, or those are all strong employer brands. That's a discipline that people are starting to think about now more broadly, is to say, how do I brand my own company, our culture, and what's unique and distinctive about it that would attract the right people to come and join whatever mission or purpose that company's on. And so that branding element is an aspect of the employee experience that hasn't had a lot of time spent on it in the past. People are starting to really focus on that going forward.
Yeah, because when I think about it too, in this age of Glassdoor and other review sites, as employees leave, if they've had a bad experience inside your company, they're not bashful in telling the world about it, and that's got to impact recruitment, retention, and even morale, right?
Yeah, and even more, particularly with Glassdoor, people are generally not going to come to your Glassdoor site, employees, and leave feedback unless they've had a negative experience. You don't really get a sense of what the company's culture is like based on Glassdoor. It's kind of a distorted, almost a funhouse mirror vision of a company. And so companies are starting to become more active in branding their culture, figuring out what's unique and distinctive about that. And that's part of our culture tech platform, is to help you understand the unique elements of your culture that you can get out to the market.
So flip the script a little bit. If we're talking to somebody who's doing a job search right now and they're trying to assess the corporate culture of somebody that maybe is interested in hiring them, Glassdoor, obviously, like you said, is the funhouse mirror. How do they really get a handle on the culture inside an organization as an outsider?
So one place you can go is to topworkplaces.com. Top Workplaces is a site that contains a lot of our research that covers all of the employees, not just the ones who are kind of disgruntled and maybe posting on Glassdoor. That's a great site to look for the best employers in regions around the country, and you'll find over 2,000 companies are in Top Workplaces. Now, from if they're not in the Top Workplaces research and you want to try to understand the culture, you're really going to have to navigate your way through your social connections, through maybe folks that you're connected with on LinkedIn who work there. It's actually just a lot harder right now to actually get a real beat on the culture. And certainly, as I'm sure you've experienced, interviews are a tough spot to really assess a culture because everybody's kind of on their best behavior in an interview situation. So I would encourage people when you go to a company to really look around and see how people are interacting with each other outside of that kind of ideally outside of that interview experience.
Gotcha. How can people get in contact with you, Doug, if they want to learn more?
So our website is www.energage.com. And if you want to see the Top Workplaces research, that's at www.topworkplaces.com.
Let's jump into the numbers just a little bit. We spent a lot of time going behind the numbers, and that's really important. But a lot of our viewers want to understand that there's really a return on this, that it's not just woo-woo concept. You've seen it, you've experienced it. Can you talk a little bit about the ROI of engagement and culture?
Sure. So employee engagement has hovered right around 30% or so for many years, meaning that only about 30% of employees would answer positively to those three survey questions around feeling motivated, wanting to refer to friends, and then not having looked for a job in the past 60 days. When you look at Top Workplaces, they average about 60% engagement, so about double that return. From an ROI perspective, they also tend to return about 30% higher total return, so that would be for a public company, that's going to be your share price plus your dividends. And so, kind of a coincidence, I guess, but that 30 points of engagement also yields about 30 points of additional shareholder return. So it's substantial.
So let's make this really clear. If you do the right thing around your employees, increase their engagement, get them bought in, not only do you move the needle in a meaningful way on engagement, but you can drive that discretionary effort that really increases enterprise value.
Increases your enterprise value. It's going to, and that really is going to be through a combination of a better customer experience, more innovation, more efficiency. Really, the idea is coming from the employees, not just from senior leadership.
Yeah,
so.
Good stuff. How does the economy, employment rate impact engagement and culture, if at all?
So we founded Energage, then Workplace Dynamics, in 2006, so just before the Great Recession and the jobless recovery. And sometimes it's a little bit hard to remember that time because we're sitting in one of the most robust employment environments since 1967, I think. We're at 3.8% employment. During that time, as we were doing our Top Workplaces research, there were broadly two types of companies. The ones who understood that employee engagement experience really matters, and maybe even matters more during a time of great kind of stress to the economy, and then the ones who said, "Listen, you're lucky to have a job," and so that's really the kind of other side of the divide. And as the economy recovered, those companies who treated employees poorly really struggled to hire, whereas the ones who treated employees well really thrived during that time. And so now we're sitting at a time where unemployment rate's down around 3.8% or so. Companies that treat employees as widgets or as sort of cogs in the machine are ultimately going to struggle to retain those folks. And so that unemployment puts, that low unemployment rate really puts a lot of pressure on the organizations that kind of don't get it, I guess.
Yeah.
Now, the pendulum will swing back at some point. There have been sort of a number of folks who've been saying it was going to be this year for the last 3 years or so, and so, it will be important to stay on top of employee engagement and experience as that pendulum starts to swing whenever it does.
Yeah, we've got about 60 seconds to go here, and
Sure.
I'm going to ask you an unfair question.
Yeah.
I know that what you do is your passion. This is your why. I totally get it. Is the bar set higher for you as a leader in an organization that's responsible for measuring and increasing employee engagement?
I would certainly think so. And so our employees get to work with top workplaces and get to see what they're like all over the country. So we have a really high bar, and we set a high bar for ourselves, and a high set of expectations around that.
I am not surprised to hear that.
Yeah.
On that note, we've got to end. My guest today has been Doug Claffey, Chief Executive Officer of Energage. My name's Dave Bookbinder. This has been Behind the Numbers. We'll see you next time. Take care.